Hello children, today we will discuss about the October revolutions in 1917. So my dear children, in my previous videos lectures, we have discussed about the February revolutions, the April thesis and what really changed in Russia after the February revolutions. So my dear children, in these October revolutions, as we see that the Bolshevik groups as well as the provisional governments, they are continuously fighting each other. And here the Bolshevik groups were having fear in mind that the provisional government will set up the dictatorship in the society. In previous classes, dear children, we have discussed that in the February revolutions, the Lenin who supported the provisional governments, but later on the Bolshevik party who was having strong oppositions to the provisional government and they wanted to bring certain changes in the society. So dear children, as the conflict which was going very strongly between the Bolshevik party as well as between the provisional government, during that time we understand that the Bolshevik parties were having fear in mind that these provisional groups will set up the dictatorship in the societies. So when this fighting was continuously happening, during that time the Bolshevik supporters who are in the army as well as in the Soviet as well as in the factories, those peoples were brought together. Then after bringing together, they form a very strong committee or they form a very strong associations. So on 16 October 1917 itself, here the Bolshevik party leader Lenin, who persuaded the Petrograd Soviet to seize the power of the provisional government, because here the Bolshevik parties were having doubt in mind that these provisional governments will set up or establish the dictatorship. So here Lenin, who came out, he took the supports, persuaded the peoples, and he said that they wanted to seize the power of the provisional government. So when they have a planning to seize the power, during that time the military revolutionaries committee was formed, and when the military revolutionary committee was formed, they appointed a leader, the military leader, and its name is Leon Trotsky. The Leon Trotsky, he became the military leader. So dear children, here we see that there are soldiers who were supporter of the government and there are soldiers who were not supporter of the government. The soldiers who are not supporting the government, they were sided with the Bolshevik party, joined the Bolshevik party, formed the associations, formed the Petrograd Soviet, and they started the revolutionary in Russia. So we see the military commander and its name is Leon Trotsky. So when they started these October revolutions, they started the October revolutions on 24th October. And before that, my dear children, they kept the date as the very secret, because at the initial time, as we have discussed that these Bolshevik party as well as these provisional governments, they were having fighting with each other. So the Bolshevik parties were repressed by the provisional governments. That is why they were hiding, they were going somewhere and they were having a plan, and they, after having plans, they were again coming to the cities and they were being involved in the secret plan of the Bolshevik party. So dear children, when they were having the secret of doing this uprising against the provisional governments, they started suddenly the uprising on 24 October. And when the uprising was started, during that time, this provisional government prime minister, its name is Kerensky. He sensing the trouble, and what he did was he moved away from the city and he called out all the army commander. Then when the army commander were called during that time, what they did? They seized the Bolshevik party's newspaper headquarters and they tried to control the situations when the uprising was continuously happening in Russia. So my dear children, when the provisional government was trying to control the uprising, trying to control these revolutionaries and try to control this movement, during that time this movement was getting very violent. It was becoming very worse and worse. And when this provisional government army, they tried to control these movements, during that time in response to these provisional government, there were some soldiers who were part of these Bolshevik parties. What they did was they started arresting the minister. They started arresting the ministers and they started capturing the government officers. So what they did, because both parties are fighting together, there is provisional government and there is Bolshevik party. In Bolshevik parties we see the soldiers, we see the worker, we see these socialists. What they are doing? They are fighting against the provisional government. And when they are fighting against the provisional government, what they are doing? They are trying to seize the power of the provisional government. And even though the government was trying to control the situations, trying to repress the movement during that time, in response to that, the revolutionary military, what they did was they seized the government and they started arresting the minister here. So then after that, my dear children, what these revolutionary ministers are doing, again in order to have the control over these provisional government, what they did was they started capturing all the military points which was there in Neva River. So what they did, the revolutionary military, they went towards the Neva River and they started capturing all these military points so that they could have control over the situations. So my dear children, when this uprising was continuously happening, during that time there was meeting, and in that meeting the All Russian Congress was there, and in that All Russian Congress meeting we see these Bolshevik actions was approved, or the Bolshevik actions was approved here. And who approved these Bolshevik actions? It was approved by the All Russian Congress. So they approved these Bolshevik actions, and after approving the Bolshevik actions, we see the uprisings was going very it was going well in these Russian nations, and we see that these uprisings, it was becoming very violent, and it was taken place and by December all these situations was controlled here. So my dear children, the uprising was continuously happening, and when it was happening, so as we see that the Bolshevik party, so by December they were able to control the situations, and most of the Bolshevik parties were fighting in Moscow, and what they did, they captured the Petrograd area in Moscow and they captured these provisional government. So my dear children, in these videos, what we see the October revolutions which taken place in 1917, and how it taken place, as we see that the Bolshevik parties as well as the provisional governments. So between these two political parties, there is a uprising which was taken place on October 1917. So here the Bolshevik party leader Lenin, he persuaded all the supporters of Bolshevik parties. They started the meeting, having the plans. They made the secret plans, and on 24th October, they started attacking the provisional government. And when they started attacking the provisional government, by sensing the troubles here, the Prime Minister of the provisional government, and its name is Kerensky, he called out the troops and tried to control the situations, but the situations was out of control. And during that time, we see, in order to control the situation, the provisional government soldiers, armies, they came towards, they captured the Bolshevik party's area, they captured the Bolshevik party's buildings, and when they did that to control the situations during that time, in response to that, the revolutionary military groups, they started arresting the minister, they started capturing the government officers, and they tried to start this uprising very violently. Apart from that, my dear children, they control all the military points which was there in river Neva, and they tried to control the situations here. So when such kind of situations is happening here, we see there was a meeting, and in that meeting, the Bolshevik actions was approved by the all Russian Congress here. So my dear children, in spite of that also we see the uprisings which is becoming very violent, which is becoming very violent in the society. It is increasing day by day. In spite of that also, what we see, by December's here, the Bolshevik parties who are able to control the situations, able to control the provisional government here. So after a long period of struggles, the Bolshevik parties who got the breakthrough to control the provisional government. So my dear children, this is all about the October revolutions in 1917. Thank you so much for listening to me.